Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just having Hare Krishna. Just having a few little technical issues, but hopefully we can continue with the session today. I wanted to talk about the abodes of the Lord and the references. Where have we got this information? Is on the screen as you're looking at it. Brahma Samhita, the Padma Puran, and the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is another incredible scripture. And then there are certain scriptures which have been written by some absolutely incredible devotees. And these devotees are basically the 6 Goswamis, and they've written a lot of amazing scriptures, and they're very authoritative on this because they're from the spiritual world. So they've written the Brihad Bhagavatamrit, Laghu Bhagavat Amrit, Gopal Champu. And that's Jiva Goswami, one of the most detailed descriptions of the spiritual world. And then there are a couple of other devotees like Kavi Karnapur, who wrote the Gaura Ganadesha Dipika, and also there's the Gokul chart. We will go through that in a few minutes. So let me just see if I can join. Got it. Okay. So,
recording in progress.
Let me. Okay, can devotees hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Jayanti,
Yes.
let's see if I can share, because I've changed the.
Okay, I'll stop the share then.
Let me just see if I can open it first. Yes, please, if you could. Thank you. Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, we're there.
I'll stop the recording as well this side. Or shall I carry on?
No, I think you carry on. We can just send it later.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Can you see the screen? Everybody can see the screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So let's start with the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarvakaranata. This verse describes Krishna, who is known as Govinda. He's a supreme Godhead. He has an eternally blissful transcendental body, spiritual body. He's the origin of all. He has no other origin. He's cause of all causes. So this sort of establishes the position of Krishna, one God, but many forms. He expands himself. And then Brahma Samhita describes this beautiful verse here. Goloka namni nijadamni chale tatasya devi mahesha haridama shute shuteshu tete prabha nichaya vihitaschaina govindamadi purusham tamaham vachami. This now describes the location of the different worlds. Lowest of all is located Devi Dham, and that's where we live. Devi means Durga Mata. Devi Dham is the material world. Next, above it, is Mahesh Dham. That's the abode of Lord Shiva. And above Mahesh Dham is placed Hari Dham, and that's the abode of Hari. Who is Hari? Lord Vishnu. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm named Golok. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of the graded realms. So now, as I said, Krishna consciousness is very simple. We can stick to this verse and forget about everything else. But I'm not going to. We're going to go into some detail. And it may be possible that we may not be able to cover the full. It took us about 10 sessions to go through what I'm going to do within half an hour or 40 minutes. So please do bear with me. There is some detail. I'm going to skip over much of the detail, but I want to give you the essence and the detail so that you can see the vastness of the spiritual reality, which is so interesting. Okay, let me share, see if I can. So, Abodes of the Lord. Right, this is the Gokul chart done by a ISKCON devotee. Very, very interesting chart. And just to give a quick overview, this is of the spiritual material world. Devi Dham is the material world. Then we have Mahesh Dham, which is in between the spiritual and the material world. Then we have Hari Dham, Vaikuntha, where Lord Vishnu resides with his consort and his devotees. We also have the Brahman Effulgence, which is the sunshine coming from the sun. This is the effulgence of the Lord. Then we have Ayodhya. Ayodhya wasn't mentioned in that verse, but Ayodhya is situated below Golok. And then we have Golok, Krishna's own abode. Now, in terms of proportions and locations, the actual location of the material world is the northeast corner of the spiritual world. So this is not quite a representative, not quite representing accurately the material and spiritual world, but it's very difficult to do that. So that's why it's all at the bottom. But actually, it's a very small part of the northeastern corner of the spiritual world, around about here. This is where the material world is located. And approximate size, it's less than a quarter of the total creation is the material world, less than a quarter. It's very tiny. And the scope of the material world is humongous. We'll come to this perhaps a bit later, but I might as well explain it now. When the Lord breathes out Mahavishnu, millions of universes come out of the pores of his skin. This is just one of those universes that we're looking at here. But actually millions of universes come out of the pores of his body. If you can imagine your sitting room full of mustard seeds, right? How many mustard seeds do you think can fit into your sitting room, right? Millions. So that's how many universes come out of the pores of his body. And that's just a tiny part of the whole creation, right? Less than a quarter. And we are just looking at the smallest universe, the tiniest universe. There are other universes which are 100 times, million times bigger than our universe. And in those universes, the Brahma, he has more than 4 heads. Our universe, he has 4 heads. But in a bigger universes, because there's a lot more for the Brahma to do in terms of creation, he has many more heads to help him. All right, so that's a brief summary. We went through this, I think, last time, how in the Brahma Samhita, in the Bhagavatam, it describes Krishna as the fountainhead, the avatari, and from whom all the other incarnations come, Balaram, and so on. So we'll go through this a few times. Now, this is the first of the Vishnu'S. Just wanted to bring him in here early because we just talked about him. So he's the one who lies on this cosmic ocean. When he breathes out, millions of universes come out of the pores of his skin. Right? And this is a small idea, some painting that was done by a devotee showing what Golok looks like, Golok Vrindavan, the spiritual world, the topmost planet. So we're going to talk about the topmost planet. In the topmost planet, it's like a lotus flower. And in the wall of that lotus flower, the middle of that lotus flower is situated Radha and Krishna. And if you see, there's a hexagon, a couple of hexagons here. They're called yantra. And this yantra is quite important. It forms the basis of the lotus. And the spiritual world is designed as a lotus. Which is quite extraordinary. It's a completely different concept to what we are used to, you are possibly understand. So around the lotus, the first petals are those who are perhaps the most closest to the Lord, the gopis, especially there are 8 Astasakis, they're called, 8 gopis, very, very important gopis, who are actually very, very similar to the Supreme Lord, non-different, practically speaking, one and the same, practically speaking. So their petals are there. And then the next petals are those of the Manjaris. The Manjaris are the younger devotees of the Lord. They assist the gopis, and they have access to the most incredible pastimes, which even the gopis may not have access to, because Radha and Krishna are not shy with the Manjaris around, but they are shy with the gopis around. So this is one of the amazing things. This is a yantra. And when we place this yantra, you may have seen this yantra. Perhaps mom and dad may have something like this on the altar. You may have something on the altar. This yantra actually can represent Radha and Krishna or other deities. Typically speaking, yantras are found for Lord Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion, on the altar. So these are the Astasakis, which I was just very quickly talking about. We won't go into any detail about them. Lalita, Vishaka, Indulekha, Ranga, Devi, Sudevi, Champakalatta, Chitra, and Tungavidya. They are very, very close, very, very sweet devotees of the Lord. And if we look at this picture a little more closely, there's Radha and Krishna. This is one of the most amazing paintings I've come across. Radha and Krishna performing their pastimes. And if you look closely, you're going to see the Manjaris. Now, where are the Manjaris? I don't know how good the resolution on your computer screens are, but let's make it a little closer, right? See, there's Radharani, and somewhere in there are the Manjaris. Now, I can't see because of the sunrise, sun. Can you see the Manjaris in this picture?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji, there's 2 right next to Radharani.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So these Manjaris are extremely close. They're even closer to Radha and Krishna than the gopis. And we are really fortunate. You know, I was telling you about some of the sources of the information that we've gathered in order to produce this presentation are from the devotees who've come to this world, the 6 Goswamis, who are the Manjaris in the spiritual world. So Rupa Goswami, for example, is Rupa Manjari. Raghunath Das Goswami is Rati Manjari. And like that, I won't go through all of them. And that's why we put some credence on their literature. Okay. Now, Golok itself is divided into 3 divisions. There's Dwarka, where Krishna lived a large part of his life. There's Mathura, where he spent about 11, 12 years. And there's Gokul, where he spent only 11 years. But if we look at the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, there's 90 chapters. 45 of them are dedicated to Krishna while he was in Golok in Vrindavan. So importance of Golok. So Golok is bang in the center. And then on the outskirt is Dwarka and Mathura. So we can see that here. That's Golok, and then Dwarka and Mathura is the outskirts. And also we have Jagannath Puri and one more dham, which is Navadvip. Navadvip is a little bit more harder to explain, so I won't go into the details, it'll take too long. And there are also divisions of the different relationships one can have with the Lord, the different rasas, they're called. So in the center is Madhurya Ras. That's why the gopis are so close to Krishna with the Manjaris. And then we have Vatsalya Ras, which is this petal here, which is Mother Yashoda and Nand and Rohini. And then we have the Sakhas, the friends of Krishna. Then we have the servants of Krishna. Then we have those who are in a Shantaras, neutral position. So that's the way the spiritual world is organized. Through these lotuses, the different rasas appear on different petals. Now, also, yes. So that's a very brief summary of. There's a lot more detail to talk about, but time is a restriction for us. Then we have the first incarnation. Then we have the quadruple incarnation, and these 4 are represented in the spiritual world. Here they are. There's who's that? Vasudev, and then he's there, and then we'll see Padumna. Padumna is here, Aniruddha, and the other one, Shankarshan. I think it was it? Let's just have a look. Yeah, Shankarshan. So they are all in the sort of corners, if you like, of the spiritual world.
Is Prabhuji freezing for everybody?
We can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Is freezing.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit, but you're kind of breaking up. A little bit, but kind of breaking up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji, you're clear.
Okay. Except you're going to get an echo. Sorry, the internet is a little dodgy in this place today. Normally it's okay.
Prabhuji, I think you need to mute one of your devices because we're getting a lot of feedback.
It's okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to avoid the feedback. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, I think the feedback's gone. Can you see my screen at all?
Yeah, we can see the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, that's something.
Wait, not anymore.
Not anymore. How about now? Yes, okay. All right. So let's just go back. So that's the sort of description of Golok. And it's very brief, but there's a lot more detail. Then we come to below Golok is Ayodhya. And Ayodhya is the residence of Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrugna. And they've expanded from the first Chaturvyu. What's the first Chaturvyu? There. There are expansions of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Padumna, and Aniruddha. Ramachandra is the incarnation of Vasudev. Lakshman is Sankarshan, Bharat, Padumna, Shatrugna is Aniruddha. And Ayodhya is located between Golok and Vaikuntha. It's higher than Vaikuntha. It's higher than Vaikuntha in terms of the spiritual realities. It's lower than Golok. Why? Because the mood in Ayodhya is one of Aishwarya, awe and reverence. In Dwarka, it's much more opulent, but there's less Aishwarya in Ayodhya than in Dwarka. Hence why it is regarded higher than, is lower than Ayodhya. Dwarka is considered higher than Ayodhya, sorry. And devotees of Ram, who've got a specific affliction towards him, like Hanuman, will reach the planet of Ayodhya. This is where they will have a wonderful relationship with the Supreme Lord in Ayodhya. So now we're going to shift to Vaikuntha. So this is Vaikuntha. So Golok, Ayodhya, Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is absolutely humongous, but in comparison of the planets, the Golok is regarded to be half of the spiritual world. It's absolutely humongous. We can't show it to scale in Golok chart, of course, but this is how it's described by the spiritual authorities, that Golok is half of the spiritual world. It's huge. So then in Vaikuntha we have unlimited planets there are in Vaikuntha. Lord Narayan is of course worshipped there. There are 7 layers. And again, we have this lotus. And then we got the lotus petal. The roll, the middle of it is Lakshmi Narayan. And around, especially those who are very close to him, have their positions. And then his wives. And then there's 7 layers that we talked about. What are these 7 layers? First is the second Chaturvyu. So we have the first Chaturvyu here, which is then expanded into Ayodhya. And then from Sankarasana, that's Lakshman, comes Narayan, the source of the Vaikuntha planets. And from him comes the second Chaturvyu. So the second Chaturvyu is there with their wives, with their consorts, Aniruddha, with Kanti, Vasudeva, with Lakshmi, like that. And then there's a second layer, is this 24 expansions of Vishnu. I won't go through them because there's quite a lot there. Why are there so many forms of the Lord? Because he loves to transact with his devotees, and that's why he has so many different forms. And then the third layer of the 7 is the 10 avatars. So there you go. We talked about the avatars last 2 times. So here we go. These are the 10 avatars. They actually have a basis in the spiritual world. And then there are 8 eternal associates of the Lord. I won't go into too much detail, except to say that the original Ganesh, the original Durga, are based in the spiritual world. From them expands the demigods. So far, we've not heard about any of the demigods, but here, these are the source of the demigods. They're actually Vishnu Tattva. They're actually part of Lord Vishnu, but they expand into the material world and they take material forms. Yeah? They're not the same as the one in this material world, but they are the inspiration. They're the inspiration of those in the material world. Then we have the 5th layer, which is the 4 Vedas. And then we have the personal weapons of the Lord. These weapons are also personal. They actually have form. They actually have a personality. They're actually people. And then we have the 7th layer, the final layer, which are the eternal protectors of the Lord. Again, there's Indra there, but it's not the same. It looks the same, and he empowers the heavenly Indra in the same way. Right? Ganesh is empowered by these eternal associates of the Lord. He's not the one and the same, but it's an expansion, a little different expansion from what we understand. And also Lord Shiva is here in his Vishnu Tattva form. Isan he's known as, Ishan. And where is he? There, northeast corner. And that's where the material world is based. The northeast corner, that's Isan. There he is. So this is the original Lord Shiva as Vishnu Tattva. Very interesting. Right. Now, today we're not going to have a quiz, so we're going to continue a little bit more. If I can just finish where we finish as much as I can. So we've looked at Golok, we've looked at Ayodhya, we looked at Vaikuntha. In Vaikuntha, there's millions and millions of planets. Each of those Vishnu avatars have their own planet with their own devotees, millions of devotees, billions, trillions of souls. The vast majority of souls live in the spiritual world. Very few minority live in the material world. We are part of that minority, unfortunately. And in Vaikuntha, the worship of the Lord is very opulent. You couldn't go to Vaikuntha into the palace of Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu and do what you want. You can't do that. You have to abide by the rules of the palace, of the relationship that one has with the Lord there, which is of awe and reverence. One couldn't, for example, jump on his back and whip him. But in Golok Vrindavan, you can, right? Because the relationship is different, is sweeter, is a more personal relationship, not in awe and reverence. Then we're looking at the effulgence of the Lord, the Brahmajut. This is the Brahmajyoti, which is the brightness of the Lord gives rise to the effulgence. And a lot of people, a lot of yogis meditate to merge with the Lord. This is where they would end up. And merging with the Lord is actually regarded to be not a good place to be. Why? Because we are individual souls eternally. Originally, we are from the spiritual world. We had an individual identity. If we, unfortunately, we decided to become separated from the Lord. So he created this material world for us, where we can try to live, to sort of become, if you like, God. But this world is perfectly imperfect. And the soul is always frustrated due to birth, death, old age, and disease. No matter how much wealth we have, or possessions, or family, or friends, it's not enough, right? It's never going to be enough. And even if it is enough, there's something called death, which will take it all away. And death is like a hard stop. You know, like sometimes in the computer world, they talk about soft spot, soft sort of hard. What did I say? Hard stop, soft stop spot. So you don't switch the computer off completely, but then sometimes you have to switch the computer off completely in order to fix something. So that's what death is. It's a hard stop. You know, it just completely finishes everything. So now if we try to reestablish our relationship with the Lord, then we can go to the spiritual world, and simplest way of doing that is Mahamantra. But some spiritualists, they don't have information about the personal form of the Lord, or they want to merge with the Lord. This is where they end up, in the Brahmajyoti. I won't go through this in detail because we've already done this. But in the Brahmajyoti, it's a hellish condition, because the soul in that condition just can't do anything. But the soul is always active. We're always active. So it's regarded that if we want to merge with the Lord, then it's really not a good place to be. Yeah? So we don't want to end up in the Brahmajyoti. It's regarded worse than hell. It's like merging with the Lord. So let's summarize. We've talked about Golok, Ayodhya, Haridham, the Brahman, effulgence of the Lord. Those who want to merge with the Lord end up there. But ultimately they'll be frustrated because there's no activity in that Brahman. And eventually they'll probably come back down to this world, unless they have the mercy of some special souls, in which case they may get promoted to the spiritual world. So then there's the thing that divides the spiritual world and the material world. Hang on a minute, where are you? Sorry. Yes, the Viraja river. When the Lord wants to create the material world, Sankarsan expands his Karanadakshay Vishnu. And that Karanadakshay Vishnu is here. That's Karanadakshay Vishnu. When he breathes out, millions of universes come out of the pores of his body. From his perspiration comes this ocean, which is also known as Viraja river. It's also known as Karana ocean. So that divides the material and spiritual world. And if we see here, right, in the middle of that division, or the Shivalok is cut in half effectively. There's one half of it is in the spiritual world, the other half is in the material world. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. So this is the northeast corner. Part of Shivalok is in the spiritual world, and part of it is in the material world. And the Shiva that we're used to is the incarnation of the Shiva who is in the spiritual world, who is non-different from Vishnu. He's known as Shambhu. Anyway, we'll come to that. Now, Mahavishnu, when he glances over Ramadevi, then this glance is regarded to be that of the souls like us. He's giving life to the universe to start creation again, right, through that glance. In his body reside millions of jivas who were in the material world previously with unlimited desires. Mahavishnu desires to liberate these souls or allow them to continue with their trying to fulfill their desires. He glances towards Ramadev, whose shadow becomes Maya. Her shadow is Maya. So we should understand that Narayan and Ramadevi have nothing to do with the material world. Her shadow becomes Durga. And also his glance becomes Shambhu. So he gives life to the material world, but he's got nothing to do with the material world. I won't go into any of that. And Shambhu is very interesting. He carries the jivas into the material world, the pradhan. And then this pradhan is given life. You know, these senses come alive because of the interaction of the Lord through his glance. Shambhu impregnates Maya and turns into Shiva Tattva. He is no longer Vishnu Tattva now. That aspect of him is there, but when he touches this material world, he becomes Shiva Tattva, no longer Vishnu Tattva. Yeah. So Shiva's planet is half in the spiritual world, half in the material world. The half in the spiritual world is always going to remain the spirit, and that is Vishnu Tattva. But the half in the material world becomes Shiva Tattva. It's a little different. Shiva Tattva is different. It's very special because he gives shelter to those everybody else has rejected. But Shiva is not equal to Vishnu. We have to understand. When he becomes Shiva Tattva, he becomes different. Just like the explanation is given. When we have milk and a curding agent is added to that milk, like lemon juice, it becomes yogurt. So in the same way, Vishnu added the material world becomes Shiva. So it's same milk product, but different at the same time. Milk and yogurt are different. So that's a very brief explanation of Shiva, Shivalok. So now the only place left is Devi Lok, material world. So I'll give you a very brief explanation of that. From this, Mahavishnu, Karanakshay Vishnu, expands Garbhadakshay Vishnu into all of the different universes. All of the different universes, he expands himself as Garbhadakshay Vishnu, the second Purush, the second Vishnu, from whom comes this, sprouts this lotus flower, on top of whom is seated Lord Brahma. Yeah. Now, if you see here, every universe has coverings. There's 7 coverings. What are these coverings? These are coverings of earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, and Mahatattva. These 7 coverings are extremely difficult to penetrate. So the first is earth. I won't go through any detail. Then it's water. Each one is 10 times bigger than the previous one. And earth is bigger than the universe. So this is not a true reflection of what he looks like. These are huge. And each one sustains life. Each one has personalities living in it. And if we become self-realized, we will pass through these 7 coverings. And if we get tempted by any of the luxuries that are present in these places, we end up there. So we got to be very careful. By the Lord's mercy, if we become self-realized, we have to keep our eyes and vision closed and focused on Golok Dham. So we don't fall into the trappings of this world. So then, as I said, from Garbhadaksha Vishnu sprouts out this lotus. Brahma is on top of it. And he creates the 14 planetary systems, of which 7 of them are higher, heavenly planets. And then there's Earth. Sorry, 6 are higher. 7th is Earth. And then there's 7 lower planetary systems. This doesn't mean hell. There's this lower. The demons live there in luxury. And then there's a 3rd Vishnu. So we talked about Karadaksha Vishnu, Mahavishnu. We talked about Garbhadaksha Vishnu, who expands into every universe. So there's millions of them. And then into every single soul, with every soul, is Shiradaksha Vishnu. He is Paramatma, super soul. He expands again. So this is why the Lord has billions and billions of expansions. Every one of us, while we're living in this material world, will have Paramatma with us. Shiradaksha Vishnu is with us. And who is this Brahma? Brahma is regarded to be the topmost living entity. He's just like you and me, but he's very special because he's completely pure, very powerful, highly intelligent, spiritually realized, mostly. But yet he has a desire to engage in the creation work of the Lord. So the Lord gives him that benediction. Yes, I will allow you to do that. So, and just a very quick look at the planetary systems. The topmost is Satyalok, Brahma's residence. Then we have the residence of the great, great sages, the Prajapatis, the fathers of mankind. Then we have the great devotees like Bhrigu Muni. And then we have Swarglok, which is demigods, the administrators of this world, Ganesh and Indra and Vayu, Chandra, Surya, Dharmaraj. They help Brahma administer this world. And then there's different planets where the souls don't have bodies, but they're still quite elevated. They're the servants of the demigods. And then we have Bhulok, Earth, where we live. And then we have the lower planetary systems. Sunshine doesn't enter these planets, but they have their own form of light, which is extraordinary. Actually, we haven't got time to talk about it. Below the 14 planetary systems is Nirkalok, which is the 28 hellish worlds, where one suffers if one has done some terrible karmic activities for a short time and then back onto Earth again. So I wanted to stop there. That's sort of, there's a lot to talk about these different loks, Satyalok, Tapalok, Janalok, Mahalok. There's a little bit of information about Lok, but we won't go into any detail because there's not enough time. But understand that this is really complex area of spirituality, the abodes of the spiritual world. So, just as a very brief summary, we talked through Golok in a very overview point of view. We talked about Ayodhya, Vaikuntha, the Brahmajyoti, Maheshlok, Shivlok, and then the material world. We had a little idea of what that looks like. So I hope I haven't blown up too many brains. Any questions? Yes, Ishwari.
Somehow today we only have 2 questions.
Good.
Is it true that Brahma had 5 heads at one point?
Actually 4. At one point, right at the beginning, he had 1 head. And then what happened? He was looking around and he turned into 4 heads. So Krishna gave him 4 heads because, as you know, to create the universe requires quite a lot of effort, a lot of brain power, a lot of intelligence. So he gave him 4 heads. But this is the smallest universe. So the Brahma in this universe has only 4 heads. And he was thinking, hey, I am superior to everybody. So one day he went to see Krishna and he introduced himself to the gatekeepers. I am Brahma. Tell Krishna I've come to see him. And Krishna then, the gatekeepers went to Krishna and said, there's Brahma. And Krishna asked them, which Brahma is this? So then they told Brahma in the gate, which Brahma are you? 4-headed Brahma. Are there any others? Anyway, eventually Krishna let him into the palace. And he asked Krishna, are there any other Brahmas? You asked, which Brahma are you? I am. And then Krishna closed his eyes. And from all over the other universes, Brahma started coming. Some with 10 heads, some with 20, some with 30, some with 100, some with 1,000,000 heads. And when Brahma was, our 4-headed Brahma was looking, he was thinking, oh my God, I'm nothing. I was thinking I am the head of this universe, but I am nothing. So this is the position of Brahma.
Why does Lord Shiva reside in the abode of demons?
No, oh yeah, that's right. He has. He's very compassionate. He's very close devotee of Krishna, so close that when Krishna took birth, Shiva went to see him. And Mother Yashoda wouldn't let him in. You know, he was covered in ash. He had skulls over his, around the skull's garland around his neck. And he looked quite crazy. And Yashoda Mai wouldn't let him in. And when Krishna realized, he started crying and crying and crying and crying because he wanted to see his devotee. So the relationship with Krishna and Shiva is very close. But Shiva, he's very compassionate. Those who everybody else has rejected them, nobody cares for them. Shiva will give them comfort. Shiva will give them residence. So that's why he stays even amongst the demons. He stays in the cemeteries sometimes. He covers himself with ash just to give shelter to those everybody else have rejected. So that's the position of Shiva. Extraordinary personality. That's why Krishna loves him so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for your questions. Anybody else? Today's a chance. So I hope I didn't, was that explanation okay in terms of the spiritual and the material worlds? Give me some feedback. If that was a bit too much, then we can exclude it from future courses. Everybody asleep, huh?
Hare Krishna, Babuji. I think it was useful.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think it was very useful, knowledgeable. I think we should not skip it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that actually gives an overview of at least where are we situated.
Yeah. Yes. And what's in the spiritual world as well. It's good to know.
Yeah.
And there's somebody asked a question. Will we get the notes for today's session? Yes, definitely we will try to. I tried to save the last set of notes and I couldn't do it because the file was just too big of the avatars. But this one I should be hopefully be able to. We will Yes, let's. I'll try to save the other notes into smaller files, but at the moment I'm having a little internet issue, so might be a few days before I get it to you. Kishore, you found the session useful? Are you able to unmute?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, very much. But that's why I want to go through again so that I can connect again. It was just too much to digest in 20 minutes.
Yes, I agree. I think we did a 10-week session on this, and it's so much detail.
Yeah. There's a good mention of these 4 Vishnus in a Gita as well, in a purport section of Gita.
Sorry, the 4.
The 4 Vishnu theory. There's a good mention of that in Gita as well, isn't it?
In the Gita, you won't find the Vishnus are not described in there. The 3 Vishnus. The
3. Sorry, I said in the purport section of one of the.
Purport, yes. Prabhupada described it. Yes, correct. Krishna actually doesn't go into it because there's a war to fight. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the scripture which is above the Bhagavad Gita, there's a huge explanation about the 3 Vishnus, the Purusha avatars. It gives a lot of description. All right, we can, unless there's any more questions, we can close.
Sorry.
Yes.
A couple of things from last week. A couple of questions about mantra.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, I think Kishori asked who was mantra. So basically, she was a beautiful Gandharvi, and she was sent by Brahma to help Ram to be exiled. So she was given that task by Brahma, and also Ram also had told her that is her duty that she needs to do. And then Ram had said that in her next life she would be Kubja in Krishna Lila, and she would go back. Krishna touches her. So that was the history about mantra.
Oh, thank you for that. There's also Valmiki. Now, Valmiki was a bit of a dacoit, but Narad Muni preached to him, and he was a hunter. I think he stopped hunting, and Narad Muni said to him, "You should chant the name of Ram." And Valmiki started. He couldn't actually pronounce Ram. And Narad Muni said, "Well, it's so easy. Okay, if you can't pronounce Ram, because that's God's name, because you've been so sinful, then do Ma-Ra. Start chanting Ma-Ra. So Valmiki started chanting Ma-Ra, 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 Ma, Ram. He got it. And then he became completely fixed in the chanting of Lord Ram's name. And then later on, I think he was so engrossed in meditation that an anthill covered him. And that's one of the reasons why he's got this name, Valmiki, which I think stands for anthill. And he was given this privilege of writing the Ramayana. Somebody asked that last time, so I thought, let me just share.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. And it shows the mercy of Ram. His name is so easy. Ram, so easy. And Krishna's so hard to pronounce. We might not get it right. But Ram, no problem. So Ram is very straightforward. Krishna is a little trickier. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Probably we may not have a quiz next, unless Kishori, I don't know if you want to venture out and do a quiz for this session next week. Let me know through your mum, huh?
We might not be able to. I'm not very sure.
No problem. If you can't, that's okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Take care.
Krishna. Krishna.
Hare
Bye.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare